We're joined by Alabama head coach Nate Oats. Coach, can you please give us an opening statement? Then we'll take some questions.
It's great to be here. I'm very fortunate that I'm able to coach at a place like Romulus that gives us the resources to be able to make a run like this. I mean, shoot, I've done a lot of reminiscing over the last week as people asked me, 11 years ago I was coaching high school basketball and just getting to know the Hurley brothers pretty well. It's ironic that, my first Final Four that I make, the first one Alabama makes, but I coaching against Danny Hurley, who his brother Bobby, it's the one that got me in this business. If it wasn't for Danny and Bobby, I wouldn't be here, and we're playing each other in Bobby's town down here in Phoenix. So it's kind of funny how it comes full circle, but it'd be nice if I wasn't having to play against Danny's team because it's a pretty good team. So we've been underdogs kind of through this tournament. Nobody expected us to be here at this point. Last year we had the number one overall seed, and it's the nature of the tournament. With a one-game elimination tournament, the best team doesn't always win. That happened last year, and we've been able to make a run now, and we're going to have our team ready to go Saturday night. We know we've got a daunting task in front of us, but our guys will be ready. And, me and Danny talked earlier in the week. We're going to have fun. He's ultra-competitive, as I'm sure you all know. And not quite sure what happened with the plane. It wasn't me. I didn't send anybody over there to mess with the mechanics. I'm sure he's conjured that up in his head already. But I did get a good night's sleep last night, so that's nice. But I'm sure he'll be fired up and ready to go Saturday. It'll be fun, and then we'll touch base after the game.
Coach, our first question comes all the way up front on the left side of the room. Jeff?
Yeah, Nate, how many hours of sleep did you get?
I got a solid 7 to 8 hours in a bed, not on a plane.
They got in at 3:13.
That's not fine. I am glad I'm not the ops person for the University of Connecticut basketball team during this trip, that's for sure.
How do you approach this with your team? I mean, obviously nobody's picking you guys to win. You're a heavy underdog. How are you approaching this with your group right now?
Listen, we were an underdog. Nobody expected us to be here. I mean, we weren't playing our best basketball come the end of the regular season. Now, part of that was we weren't healthy. We haven't had the last time we had our full team healthy, we beat a really good A&M team 100-75. So, we had to sell our guys that we can make the run, before the tournament. Now that we've made the run to get to the Final Four, I want our guys playing loose and free, but I want them thinking we got a chance to win. I mean, if you guys know me, I'm not going into this game just happy to be here. UConn's great. Danny's done a great job. I mean, there's, as Danny said, they're bulletproof, but other teams have been up on them, going on runs. The problem is they just go on a huge run, as evidenced by the last game, 30-0, and they make these enormous runs. So we're going to show our guys success other teams have had, and the success that other teams have had, we also do those things very well. We just can't give them these big runs that everybody gives up. Now, it's a lot easier said than done, but over 40 minutes, we're going to be in there. We got a chance. We played some of the best teams in the country. We didn't win in the non-conference against some of the best teams, but we had margins. We were up at least 6 on all 3 of those games. When we played Purdue, Creighton, Arizona, we were up at least 6 with at least a 75% chance of winning each game in the second half. So we've played good teams and been up on them, and we can go back to that. We just got to close out 40 minutes.
Coach, we're going to go to the left side of the room by the column, AP.
Hey, Coach, right here. AP Stedham, AP Kelly, as we see at syndicated radio. Coach, what elements of UConn Hurley basketball are present in Alabama basketball? And in general, what do you tell your team about playing against a supreme shot blocker?
Yeah, I mean, the similarities are they play, Danny's, everybody makes it out to be like, we're the ones doing all the analytics and efficiency. Well, Danny's about that stuff too. Me and Danny have talked about it. Like they're trying to get the most efficient shots they can too. They're trying to force inefficient shots. They do it a little differently because they've got a post player in Klingon that they can go to. And we don't play through the post as much, but they like to shoot a lot of threes too. Every big run I've seen them make, they've made plenty of threes. They take threes in the break like we take them. Now we play a little more loose and free in the half court. They're a little more set oriented. I mean, they're going to run a set every time they don't score quickly. In a transition break, our guys play a little bit more in the flow, but it's probably a lot more similarities than there are differences, and he does a good job with the sets. And obviously attacking Klingon, well, Illinois tried to go right at him, and I think they were 0 for 19 on shots that Klingon contested, so it's probably not the best plan of attack, but we have played against Edey, we played against Kalkbrenner, we played against Jonas Adu at Tennessee. We played against some real shot blockers, and we've had some success with them. Can you pull them away from the rim? We can play Grant Nelson at the 5 some, and if he's making shots, he's got to come away from the rim. There's other things you can do, but we certainly aren't going to just drive the ball at him and expect to score over the top of him all night. That didn't seem to work very well their last game out.
Just a quick reminder, you can take still photos, but no video while in the press conference room. Let's go up to Dan, left side up front.
Nate over here. Hey, Dan Wolken, USA Today. You talked about reminiscing the last several days. When you think back to that time in your career and your life, were you happy being a high school coach for the rest of your career? Or did you, were you grinding every day to strive to get an opportunity to do something like this?
It's a good question. So when I took the job, at 27, I'd been a Division III assistant for 5 years. I think I would have taken any Division I assistant job anywhere in the country. It didn't really matter. It was just to be at this level. As I stayed at Romulus longer and longer, I was getting more and more picky with where I'd go. I had 3 daughters that were born in right outside Detroit there, and I didn't want to have to move my family. And really, the Hurley family kind of helped me come to grips in my head with I'll be okay just being here the rest of my life. We were successful at Romulus. We were winning, good retirement plan as a school teacher. Because I had interviewed at a few different schools in the MAC and didn't get them, or just wasn't the right, or been promised a job that then didn't come through when they had an opening. And it could be frustrated, but I'd come to grips. If Bob Hurley Sr. could be a Hall of Fame coach and turned down, I think he had multiple Division I head coaching jobs he turned down to stay at St. Anthony's. And we were nowhere close to St. Anthony's at Romulus. I'm not trying to compare the two programs, but the fact that he stayed at the high school level and everybody knew him and he was great, I could stay here and be a very successful basketball coach and be happy with it. Well, it seems like every time you kind of get that way in life, then a pretty good opportunity comes up. So kind of when I got to the point where we're going to work hard, but I wasn't just grinding to get to a college job. Let's do this the best I can because that's the way we should do it. Then I had a pretty good opportunity come up, and Bobby Hurley offered me a spot. And I got to the point I was not going to go into college if I wasn't pretty confident the guy I was going in with was going to be successful. I was pretty confident the Hurley family was going to be successful. Bobby Hurley being part of it, obviously, was going to be successful in his college coaching because I didn't want to have to move after getting fired year after year after year. And I've been fortunate. We haven't been fired anywhere yet.
Coach, we'll go to the right side, just to the left of the column.
Hey, Nate. David Brandt with the Associated Press. You talked about your background, and I think 4 out of the top 5 scorers on your roster transferred from mid-majors. Do you think that kind of player is a little more hungry, a little more appreciative, that there's something about, that journey that makes those players in some ways tougher?
I think so. I feel like I'm, a little bit the same way. Like I'm just a high school guy that caught a break that's still trying to prove that I even belong at this level. I think those guys are mid-major players with a chip on their shoulder that, played well enough that now they get an opportunity to prove they belong at this level, and they're still trying to prove it to this day, and they're going to be trying to prove it Saturday that they belong at this level. Look at a kid like Mark Sears, who's from the state of Alabama, that we probably screwed up and didn't offer him a scholarship. There's no probably about it. We screwed up. He's obviously good enough, but I'm not sure that he would be this good if he didn't have to go to Ohio University first before he came here, because this is a kid that's improved every single year. Out of high school, he had to go to Hargrave. Then he has to go to Ohio. Didn't shoot it well as a freshman. Got to prove he's a shooter. Plays well. Then we take him. He ends up being our second leading scorer. Now this year he's our leading scorer, and we're in the Final Four. I mean, he's just improved every year, but they all got a little chip on their shoulder. Estrada from Hofstra, I mean, he's a player of the year, back-to-back years in a great league there. But now, he didn't play a ton at Oregon. So now he's proven he can do it at this level on a team that can win and go to the Final Four. And Grant Nelson and Reitzel and even Nick Pringle started at Wofford, and I think only played in half the games his freshman year at Wofford. So I think all of these guys are trying to prove they belong at this level, just like I am, to be honest with you.
Coach, third row on the right side.
Coach Ryan Hennessy, NBC 13 in Birmingham. There's a stat that came out that over the last few years, the Final Four coaches have an average of 20 years of experience as a head coach. I believe yours is 9 in Division I. How many people have said to you, you can't do it this way? Your route was a little different, not being an assistant for long. And what do you say to those people that there is different routes to take to get to the Final Four?
Yeah, there's definitely a different route. Mine's a lot different than most. And I was at Romulus, and Danny being at St. Benedict's, Kevin being at Hargrave, and Romulus a little bit different. It's cool that we were all in high school. Mine was a little more like the traditional high school. You actually had to live in Romulus to go to Romulus, and I think it gives some hope and belief for just the normal high school coach out there. Maybe not the high school coach that's on this national level where they're recruiting nationally. But I think, and I wouldn't trade my route for anything, because I got experience at that in different ways that like a lot of these coaches don't get. If you haven't coached at a high school level, you have no idea what it's like to be on the other side of the recruiting table. I had 18 kids go play Division I. I took a lot of them on visits. I took E.C. Matthews on an unofficial visit to Rhode Island, drove him out there from Detroit to Rhode Island, sat in on all the meetings. I know what it's like to sit on that side of it, so I can use that to apply. And there's lots of, I'm able to experiment with how I play. If your first head coaching job ever is at Division I level, there's a big spotlight on you. You can't experiment as much. 1 year we pressed the whole year, found out what worked, didn't work. If you do that at this level and it doesn't work, you may get fired after a year. If they fire me from being a coach at Romulus, it only takes like $4,000 out of I'm still good as a teacher. I still got my math job, so I was able to experiment a little bit more, coming up that way. And I think it gives me a different perspective on some things, but I'm here. To those that say you can't do it, it's definitely harder, but you can't do it. I just did it. I mean, you got to catch some breaks. I don't want to, if I had some secret formula, I'd write a book and make millions retire from coaching. You got to catch a lot of breaks, but you got to be ready for your breaks when they're given to you too. I mean, I'm thankful to be here. I was grateful to work at Buffalo under an AD that took a chance. He's now in the SEC. Danny White's at Tennessee, but he gave me a job after only being there for 2 years. I was only out of high school for 2 years. So I know that I'm fortunate. I work for different people, caught different breaks that a lot of people don't get. There's a lot of high school coaches that are probably just as good, if not better than me, and just haven't had a break like I've been able to have.
All the way back and all the way to the right side.
Coach Sam Lance with Adam Zagori and zagsblog.com. First thing, what made you want to recruit Aaron Estrada, and how does NIL help someone like him kind of change he and his mom's life? He talked to us about how much NIL has allowed him to support her.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron's an unbelievable kid, a great player. I coached at a level similar to what the CAA is. The MAC and the CAA are similar levels. And when I got the job at Alabama, I know there's the best player in the MAC could definitely have played for us at Alabama for sure, just about every year. So you go find a player of the year on back-to-back years in a league as good as the CAA, like we knew, and we've got a third-party analytics company that helps us kind of evaluate transfers on fit within our program, and they thought he was great. I mean, he's like the best guard in the portal that we could get for how we want to play, and he's proven to be pretty good. I mean, he's got a triple-double. I mean, you think about all the pros we've had since we've been at Alabama. It's only the second triple-double we've had. Kyra Lewis had the first one, so he's played great. As far as the NIL goes, you go from Hofstra to a place like Alabama, and there's opportunities for a lot more NIL than there was at Hofstra. For him to be able to bring his mother down to as many games as they did and help her. I did an in-home visit with him in a Philly area, him and his mom, and it kind of took me back to my Romulus days. Like I said, I used to go to all my players' houses and stuff, and it was cool to kind of be in there and know that he could support his mom. And I mean, she's a great lady. I love seeing her at all the games, and she's super nice. But yeah, he's able to help her with what he can and bring her to games. And the NCAA, it's great. They provide the money to bring the families to the Final Four. But now with NIL, like, the kids can bring their parents to all the NCAA tournament games. Spokane, LA, they can fly them up to Toronto when we play Purdue. They can. So those opportunities are great for the kids now.
Up front and center.
Nate Kelly, Tuscaloosa News. Nate, can you put into words what Mark Sears has meant to the team's success in the tournament and the whole season?
Well, obviously he's our leading scorer, and we had a top 5 offense in the country most of the year. A lot of the year we were number 1 offense in the country, and he's a huge part of that. We wouldn't be where we're at without him. We know that. And offensively, he's been one of the best players in the country all year. We would not be in the Final Four if it was not for Mark Sears' defense, leadership. Like, he's turned it around a lot in that regard in the last month. I think he made a decision. He wants to play as long as possible this year, wants to put himself on a national stage. And the only way we were going to do that is if our best player was really locked into the defensive end of the floor, and he's been really locked in and proved he can be a great guard defender, and he's doing it. We need him to do it on Saturday night again because, he's got to play. He's our best player on offense. He's going to play a lot of minutes. So when your best player is playing really hard on defense and leading the way he's been for these last few weeks, you got a chance to make a special run like we've done.
Coach, center of the room, 3 rows from the back.
Robert O'Connell, Wall Street Journal. Nate, you've talked all tournament about his philosophy of next. Can you expand a bit on the different things that might mean to you on the practice level, game level, season level, and how hard is it to kind of trust that process in, like you say, a single elimination tournament where things can go off the rails so quickly? Yeah, so,
I talked to Coach Saban after we lost in the SEC tournament. I think just about every year he won a national championship, they lost at some point during the year. And football's obviously different. There's a lot more games in basketball. But like this year, they lost the Texas game, and he did an unbelievable job getting the season turned around. So I called him, like, how do we get this thing turned around this late? Like, we're not playing our best basketball. And he kind of talked. He watches all the games, and Coach, got to get you guys, they got to go to the next play. And we kind of talked about that a little bit as a group. But I'm like, you know what? We're going to make this real simple. We're going to come in, we're just next. And it goes all kinds of different ways. Sometimes we'll be on, like I said, we had the number 1 offense for a bulk of this year until the injuries came. But sometimes we'd be on a big run, be up on a team big, and we just relax on defense. It even happened to us in the NCAA tournament. We got up 31 on Charleston. I felt like we relaxed, and over the last 7 minutes, they outscored us by 18. So we did a pretty good job of next until then, and then we didn't do a good job at it. But it's also been the other way. We have some offensive struggles. Guys will drop their heads, and they're thinking about the last play on offense instead of the next play on defense. So, it's the next action within the play. It's the next play, no matter what happens on offense, good or bad. Bad call by a referee, teammate misses you on an open kick out. It doesn't matter. Just go to the next play and give everything you have to the next play. And then when we're done with this game, move to the next game. So I think it's great philosophy in life. There's a lot of adversity you hit in life. Move to the next. What's the next best action? Like, go through all kinds of things in life. move to the next one and make that the best one. If you live in the past, you're not going to be very good in the present. So we've been trying to move to the next play, the next action, the next timeout, just next. And our guys have been doing a pretty good job of it for 4 games.
Coach, this is likely our last question. And Reed, we're using that same back right mic. Matt
Norlander, CBS Sports. Nate, this is kind of touching on what you just talked about, but you're 105th in adjusted defensive efficiency at Ken Palm, which I know you know. At this stage of the season, your team's defensive capability or lack thereof kind of is what it is. When you face UConn as a coach and with your staff, are you going to lean in on everything possible that you have offensively, knowing that you have certain limitations defensively and what the data says, and I know you're deep into that, or how do you prepare this team after seeing UConn essentially, eviscerate his past 4 tournament opponents?
So, yeah, I mean, obviously we've got a third-party analytics company that does a great job. We look at Ken Palm a lot. We look at Bart Torvik. We look at all of them a little bit here and there. I think Bart Torvik's got one that you can put in just a set number of games. So if you look at our 4 games in the NCAA tournament, we're not anywhere close to 105th. Do you know what we are? Yeah, you should look at just the tournament. And if you looked at the 4 games in the tournament and took apart, look, we did a very bad job once we got up 31 on Charleston. We relaxed. If you take out those 7 minutes where they outscored us by 18 after we got up 31, our defense, and you could probably do it. I should ask our third-party analytics company, SSA, to do it for me. I believe our defense is more like top 30. So we're not going to just assume that we're a terrible defensive team and just try to outscore UConn. I think that's a recipe for disaster. They're too good on both sides of the ball. I will say we basically, our mindset with these guys have been, guys, if we're back healthy and have the number 1 offense in the country like we had when we were healthy, and we can be a top 20 to 30 defense, we can make a Final Four run. So forget it. We're not fixing the 105. I mean, there's not enough games left but let's forget that. Let's lock in. We're going to do everything we can in these games. So we did give our guys, after the first week of the tournament, in the last 2 games, we were, whatever it was, 30-something, I think it was. So I haven't run it yet. I've been a little bit too busy trying to figure out UConn. We've got our hands full with UConn. You could probably run it quick, and I should have had it run, but we're not. Our offense has to be great. We know that against a very good defense from UConn, but we are going to try to be as good as we can possibly be on defense. I just don't think you can try to be UConn 120 to 118. That's probably not going to be a good idea.
That's unfortunately all the time we have with Coach Oats. Fortunately or unfortunately, thank you, Matt. And thank you, Coach. We'll see you back here tomorrow afternoon.
Appreciate you guys. Roll Tide.